Our top story begins in Moscow, where Russian President Vladimir Putin just wrapped up his State of the Nation address earlier today. It was a speech that saw Putin touch on many issues. The most prominent, though, a warning to the rest of the world. RT's Ilya Petrenko has a full wrap.
I'll start with how the Russian president got to the final part of his speech, where he elaborated on America and its allies, plus how Russia gets along with them. He said that he was obliged to bring this issue up after Washington tore up the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. The Donald Trump administration insisted on that after the idea first surfaced in Washington last year. Mr. Putin called on the American leadership to be honest about the actual reasons why they were leaving the treaty. And the Russian president believes that these reasons are Russia and America being obliged to limit their missile arsenals, while other countries not being put in that position. Here's what else we heard from Mr. Putin on that.
Well, our US partners had to be honest and straightforward with us. They should not have used trumped-up accusations and allegations to unilaterally withdraw from it, like they did in 2002, which they did in an honest way, when they pulled out of the IBM treaty. I felt it was done the wrong way, but at least they did it in a straightforward manner. But how do they act, in fact? They violate everything, then find excuses to put the blame on someone.
Moreover, they mobilize their allies, who oink along with them.
So while addressing the lawmakers in some way, Mr. Putin addressed the American leadership as well. And the gist was Russia is not a threat for America and its allies, but it could become one if these countries start being aggressive against Moscow.
Russia wants to have a proper, friendly and equal relationship with the US. Russia does not pose a threat to anyone. Any actions we take are retaliatory, that is to say, in defense. We never seek confrontation. We do not want it, especially with a global power like the US.
And this was the point when the Russian president may even have sounded aggressive, definitely serious. The Russian president began to talk what his country would be forced to do, an R&D, an actual military deployment if the Western military expansion continues.
Russia will be forced to produce weapons that can be used not only against those territories where direct threats originate from, but also against the places where the decision makers are located. Let the US take into account the range and speed of our prospective weapons, and then they can make a decision that might create an additional threat to our country.
However, we kept hearing it time and again that the bear only roars when someone attacks it. Anything that Russia would choose to do will only be in response to hostile actions, and the Russian president still believes that the way to sort out all the global issues, the best way to do that is to make steps towards each other, positive steps.
All right, joining us now to discuss Russian President Vladimir Putin's address, we're being joined now by former Pentagon official Michael Maloof. All right, Mike, Putin made clear in his version of the State of the Union address that he wanted to build a friendly relationship based on mutual respect with the U.S., but at the same time, he also criticized the U.S. for employing what he calls illegal sanctions on Russia, among a host of other moves, like Ilya Petrenko just said, the INF Treaty. Do you believe his desire to be friendly with the U.S., is it genuine?
Yeah, I think it is. I think that it's been going all along, even before Trump was elected, that agreed that there's a need for the United States and Russia to work together on a myriad of issues, geostrategic and political issues, and terrorism. And there's a lot of things that they can do in a mutual way. What I'm concerned about today and what I'm hearing from Trump administration officials is that they're going to be increasing more sanctions here very shortly on the U.S. And one of the responses and options could be that the United States might even lower diplomatic relations with with Moscow as a consequence. This is an option that's also being bandied about, and I'm very concerned about that. There's no reason for this, and this is a generated, a manufactured crisis that, thanks to John Bolton, his comfort zone is hating Russia,
right?
And it's
comfort zone,
and it's just and it's getting irritating, and it's no useful purpose is served by having this kind of brinkmanship.
Now, President Trump has been accused over and over of being this Putin puppet, but here we are, more, like you said, more sanctions, withdrawals from landmark treaties.
Right.
I mean, really, isn't it just time for another détente?
Well, yeah, I thought we were on the road to one, but
right, that's
but then the neocons took over again. You see,
right?
And
you've been saying that this is a Bolton foreign policy administration.
Oh, it is. It's Bolton at his best, and he's very anti-Russian, and this also suits the other neocons who look upon Russia as the main nemesis, as well as China, so that they can increase their defense spending. I mean, they are in the pockets of the defense industries, and the only way you deal with this is to increase defense spending. But in order to do that, you got to have a crisis somewhere.
Right. You got to have an enemy.
You got to have an enemy, and Russia today is the boogeyman. But what I'm concerned about is that these political games that they're playing could result in some real tragedy, particularly arms races or something somewhere that could spark an episode that could just cascade into an uncontrollable crisis.
Now, speaking of arms, let's talk about Russia and NATO's expansion. Macedonia being the latest European country to join, they're encroaching on Russia's border. Missiles are going to be stored there. Is that a legitimate argument to make against the West and its NATO allies? Because originally NATO was formed, to fend off the former Soviet Union. That's no more. NATO keeps building. Arms keep going closer and closer to the border.
Well, this is a neocon approach. They want to do everything they can to improve NATO because they look upon Russia as a nemesis. Look, the United States violated an understanding that President Clinton had with the Russian leadership on promising not to do exactly what is going on today, and that is moving NATO right up to the line. Now what we're seeing is not only missiles going into Poland, into Romania, for anti-missile defense, which can easily become offensive. But we're also seeing non-NATO countries in the periphery surrounding the Federation, particularly like Georgia, that wants to now work with the United States to build an airstrip right up against the former Soviet Union. I mean, what's Putin's reaction going to be to that? I mean, I recall 2006, and it could happen, or 2008 rather, and it could happen again.
And now, on other relations, Putin praised his country's relationship with China, with India, Japan, and he says he's seeking to restore relations with the EU. Do you foresee that happening, especially since Moscow and Munich are moving forward with talks on the Nord Stream 2 project? Oh,
sure, because you're seeing the result and the emergence of a new multipolar world order here. These countries are so fed up with the United States in terms of their leadership or lack thereof, and the constant belligerency that this seems to be coming out of Washington toward other countries, even toward our closest allies, that they're saying, enough, we're just going to go in another direction.
We're going to do our own thing.
Yeah, we're just going to do our own bit, and it's prudent upon, from a geostrategic standpoint, for Putin to do this with EU. He doesn't particularly care for the EU, but if he can garner more support for and exports into the Eurasia Economic Union, he's all for it. And
business, it's all business.
Oh, yeah, it's all business.
It's not personal, it's business.
Yeah, it's all business.
All right, we'll have to leave it right there. Thank you, as always, for enlightening us to all of these myriad of world issues. Thank you, Michael Maloof.
Thank you.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.